everybody, and welcome to another episode of Two Asian Blokes Podcast, a podcast where we talk about Asian pop culture, films, TV shows, comic books, anime, music, food, video games, whatever we're feeling at the time, really. My name is Dan with a H. With me, as always, is my co-host, Tavi. Happy spooky season, Tavi.
Oh, that's right. Yes, this is a Halloween episode. I'd just forgotten that.
Yes, for the month of October, we're doing spooky stuff. And for the month of October, we're having a few guests as well. What a treat. Please welcome to the show, Nick Sheist of the Bad Movies We Love podcast. Hello, Nick.
Hello. Thank you for having me. It's about time.
I know, right? Yeah.
We had to do it eventually.
We've been on your show 3 times. Well, one without me. We've been on your show 3 times.
It still counts.
And now we're like, we'll get Nick on.
You
we'll
were there in spirit, Tavi, when we talked about the Phantom. You were there shaking your head with disdain in spirit.
He was the ghost who walks away and disagrees.
Yeah. I always have a Patrick McGoohan style ghost of Tavi next to me just criticizing me at every turn.
I had completely forgotten about the microscope kill. That's the one thing that kind of I remember from that movie.
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, that's a good point.
That's a dumb thing to include in a movie.
And Nick's metaphor of like the hose battle I thought was interesting. So I've seen a lot of hose battles recently.
Yeah.
Just like, oh yeah,
You're gonna see a bunch more. Yep.
It's like it's the blue sky beam of our time. Just every movie having a hose battle.
Yeah. Yeah, but no, thanks for coming on. I think it's cool. We always love having people on. I think we want to do it a bit more as my schedule is sort of starting to be a bit looser now. So yeah, no, thanks for jumping on. We hope you enjoyed watching our little disturbing pick. That will be, or maybe it was a walk in the park. Who knows?
Yeah, we'll find out. So Nick is here to help us talk about Lesson of Evil, directed by Takashi Miike. But before we do that, let's set the scene a little bit. So we just like to talk to our guests a bit and find out about their experience with Asian cinema, but also like what kind of shows and media you grew up on, to kind of give a bit more context as to your opinions about this awful movie that we're going to talk about. So, but I guess before we get onto that though, you do have a podcast. We've been on it a few times, like mentioned, but you've got a couple of shows and you've been podcasting for a while. How did you get started in podcasting? Feel free to plug anything that you want in this segment as well, by the way. I'll put links in the description and all that stuff.
Well, so yes, I have several podcasts where I am the host or one of the hosts. I am a engineer or producer on a couple of others that are not part of like my network, but it must have been the pandemic. I was like, I finally have time and I want to like actually do this and give this a try. And so it started with the Sheist podcast. I was doing interviews mostly during the pandemic about how people were affected. Like I was talking to people from different industries, and it didn't even matter. I didn't have a particular focus. I just wanted to know like how different businesses were being affected by the pandemic. And so that's how it started. And then, I was running a website for like 6 or 7 years before that, which I still run, but do not update. And that sort of spawned the first podcast, and I wanted to, fold movies into that. And then I was like, oh, yeah, I love football, so I'm gonna do multiple football podcasts. And so I just kind of was like experimenting, like learning the tricks of the trade and learning the audio editing and recording and the equipment side of things. And then Bad Movies We Love was the show that sort of incubated on that original show. I did like 6 episodes of it, and I was like, this is like its own thing. I feel like it needs its own oxygen to breathe here. And so I branded it, built that out, and then that became the most popular show on the network that I had. And then Kunked came along and Skadoosh reached out to me, and he's like, I think there's an opportunity here to sort of be the first ones through the wall to have a show about Philomena Kunk, and he spelled it out for me, and he sort of needed help with the technical side of things. And so we started collaborating, and now that show is the show that is the most popular show on the network. And I do a show with my wife as well that we're sort of way behind on because of recently moving and having to disassemble and reassemble the studio equipment. So yeah, it was just kind of like a natural progression of things that I was already doing. And I was probably, online too much. And so I was just like taking conversations that I would have like in short text. And now like, let's just talk about the movie for an hour rather than like back and forth on Twitter kind of thing. So it seemed like a natural evolution of what I was already doing. It's a lot of work, but what isn't?
If you enjoy what you do, you never have to work a day in your life.
Isn't that there was people were making fun of this one lady. I think she's from the
Yeah,
Housewives of Dubai or something. What's the quote she says?
Don't
love your job your love.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Wisdom from the uber rich.
No, that's podcasting.
That's podcasting right there. But no, we've been on your show like a fair few times, and I think you're the guest that we probably collaborate with the most. So it's kind of cool that you can finally come on our show. And yeah, like as Dan said, like we're pretty interested in to hear your upbringing when it comes to exposure to Asian cinema. Yeah, so like what's your sort of experience in that manner? Yeah.
I think overall experience is not one of my strongest suits. I've come back around on it a little bit more lately because I was running an online film club. So there was opportunities for people to present films to watch, and it didn't really matter. I was like, we're going to do whatever. We did a Jackie Chan month, so that was all Jackie Chan films. And I grew up watching Jackie Chan. I think sort of like my first real like film fascination as a franchise was Godzilla films. So I grew up with that. I watched a lot of Ultraman, but that was all coming from like 60s, 70s era mostly because that was what was available. And then as I got older, I kind of like shied away from Asian cinema for a while. And then I think probably as I started going to movies more often with the purpose of writing about them for the website, I just kind of opened the doors back up to take in more stuff and see a more diverse collection of films. And I would say it's still definitely not like my area of expertise, but in looking at Miike stuff, I'm like, I don't know how much I had or hadn't seen, but I saw Blade of the Immortal and I really liked it. I've seen Sukiyaki Western Django. I've seen Audition the one time a long time ago and just didn't go back to that. And I've seen Ichi the Killer. So it wasn't like I was completely unfamiliar with him, but also he's made like 70 movies. So the 4 or 5 that I've seen isn't a huge percentage of that.
Yeah. Takashi Miike is definitely an interesting figure in film. Kind of like well known in the cinephile world, but kind of an unsung hero. In a sense.
One of the original shock Japanese directors. And the one that we're talking about today, Lesson of Evil, is, a little bit obscure, I guess. It's probably one of those films that you really had to look for in order to find. Like, because we grew up in Australia. I'm not sure how it is in the States, Nick, but it's kind of hard to find Asian movies sometimes in Australia, or it was back in the day anyway. Like, you really had to kind of scour the video stores in order to find it. It was rarely on TV, maybe on one channel at like 10 p.m. at night. You might find a Miike film every now and then, but probably not.
I don't think so. I think it would have been Miike stuff's too extreme for Australian
It is
television.
A bit extreme. Yeah. If they did show it on TV, it would be about half an hour long probably due to all the edits. But how about growing up for you, Nick? Was it like easy to find this kind of stuff? Like you mentioned Godzilla. Like how were you accessing these movies when you were growing up?
So my mom worked for Robert Evans, the very legendary cocaine producer in Hollywood. And so because of that relationship, she would get things. And one of those was like a big box of, I think it was TriStar Home Video that distributed Godzillas in the US. And then like one day she just came home with like a giant box full of like all the old Godzilla tapes from it, not the original, but like definitely the 60s era after that. And so I just like became obsessed because it's like, giant monsters fighting. What's not to love?
The hose battles.
Yeah, lots of hose battles in that. So I've been experiencing them for many, many years in my life and just waiting for the evolution. But then eventually I think they caught on a little bit more in like American pop culture much later. And then it was like, oh, there's a Saturday afternoon like TBS monster movie or something like that. Or like you could catch them every now and then without having to own the VHS.
Yeah, that was the same in Australia. I saw a lot of kaiju films when I was growing up as well. I think Godzilla actually wasn't my favorite. I was a Gamera fan.
Fair.
If you remember that guy, the big giant turtle. Of course, I like both, but there was one particular one that had like the typical like Super Sentai people, and Gamera was just spinning around with like these sort of laser things coming out of his shell.
As he
It was
does.
pretty damn cool to see as a kid. Yeah.
Yeah. You only started liking Godzilla after 1998's Western Godzilla adaptation, Tavi.
Oh yeah, the best iteration of Godzilla with the finest, the best movie line ever written in the history of cinema is "That's a lot of fish."
That's a lot of fish.
Like the best. That's the best. Like if the screenwriter, he should have got an Oscar for that. That's a
I'm
lot
pretty
of
sure he
fish.
did.
Just like no.
I like
That's a lot
Broderick's
of
little
fish.
beret in that movie. Good stuff.
Yeah.
I saw someone recently say that like that was their exposure to Godzilla for the first time. And so if the net result of that movie being like, I think substandard for the Godzilla franchise, if the result of that was more people watching other Godzilla movies, then fine. Like, I don't care that that movie is bad. The Godzilla franchise has a lot of bad movies in it.
Yeah.
Because they were making them with no money. They're recycling the suits. They're recycling footage from previous Godzilla movies and just stitching it together into a movie that like hopefully makes sense. So, you know, they had to cut a lot of corners as they weren't getting more funding as the success of the movies kind of waned as the franchise grew. But like Gamera was always like kind of in the neighborhood. There was my sister worked at Tower Records, and
Oh, cool. Yeah.
there was a VHS that I like probably made her spend like way too much money renting over and over again. And it was like highlights of the Ultraman TV show.
Oh, okay.
And my guess, now that I think about it, it had like a Xeroxed black and white cover. I think one of the employees just bootlegged it and rented it out.
Yeah.
And she could have just bought the tape, but VHSs were super expensive then, so it didn't seem like a good investment up front. But then in hindsight, it's like I made her rent it so much that she might as well have just bought it up front. But, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
It is
definitely
what it
like
is.
bringing up bootlegging. That is without incriminating us, but
That's the main,
bootlegging
that's the
and-
main way that you can
and
access these
sailing the high
films.
seas. Yeah, I think that's pretty much how. I mean, Dan and I grew up with a lot of it. A lot of it is our parents coming back from, Laos or Thailand, or taking a trip to China, and then here's a basket full of bootleg VCDs, and we're like, oh, cool. And we just watch a lot of these
480p.
films. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, and not even just Asian films. It'd be so many Hollywood films. Like,
Yeah.
oh, awesome! The Matrix 4, I love it.
Yeah, you get those covers that are clearly just been like laser printed.
Yeah,
It's good stuff.
I think with availability, though, like every now and then, I think I saw Old Boy on like Showtime or something late one night, and Audition, I think I saw the same way. But other than that, there wasn't a service like Mubi or something where the focus is international cinema. And then, so I would have never been able to see a movie like Decision to Leave, which ended up being my favorite movie of that year. So accessibility, especially in the States, I think is limited. Parasite definitely like helped open some doors for more of those stories, at least with like South Korean cinema. And I saw Exuma, I think it was last year.
Yeah, that was
which
last
I
year,
really
yeah.
liked as well. So
Yeah, it's interesting because, one of the main reasons we started our podcast is because, like, generally a lot of people in the West, unless they're looking for these kinds of films, maybe they will never be exposed to it, right? So, and like, these are really good films that deserve an audience. And like you mentioned about the Western adaptation of Godzilla, 1998. Yeah, it's not a great movie, but it did kind of expose a young Tavi to this genre of kaiju movies. And that's kind of why we have like a mixed opinion about Western remakes of films. Because on the one hand, yes, it does kind of broaden the audience, and some people will take the time to go look for like the original versions of these films or whatever after watching the adaptation. But at the same time, access to it is still pretty limited. So like a lot of people will just stop at the remake, and that will become the definitive version of that movie for them. Some people will watch Josh Brolin in Old Boy and be like, oh, this Old Boy is a terrible movie. So yeah, it's hard. Like I wish kind of the distribution of these movies was kind of more available to the West.
It's starting to now. You got Shudder.
It's getting better.
A lot of the sort of J-horror classics and the, I guess, extreme cinema classics are starting to come on there, which is cool. Like we've evolved this segment where we introduce guests. I don't know. I think it was just the first movie we talked about was Old Boy, and then we've just stuck with just shocking Asian cinema. So it's what we always have to sort of do a little bit of our homework for our guests to see if they can actually handle some of the stuff that we're gonna throw at them.
And sometimes we just do it, and then we never hear from them again. We don't get many repeat guests on this show, Nick.
We don't have any repeat guests, so maybe Nick might be the first. We'll see how we go after this one. Because I think we picked a pretty gnarly one. So with Lesson of Evil, Dan and I actually talked about this movie during the infancy of our podcasts. We had talked about this film, but we cut it out because Dan was in education at the time. And he's like, oh, Tavi, I don't think I could talk about this movie online. So we edited it out. And I was like, oh, but now we can bring it back because I think it's a pretty good one.
Something we've always wanted to revisit at a point. So thanks for jumping on to talk to us about it, Nick.
Yeah, I'm your man for this one, apparently. So
begrudgingly our man.
Get it done. No, I mean, I picked this one because of the choices you gave me. I was like, all right, well, I'm more familiar with Miike, so let me jump into this one.
Yeah, it was a choice between Lesson of Evil and The World of Kaneko. So it's not.
Oh yeah.
You're mentally scarred either way.
Yeah.
But to speak to your point about availability, this wasn't a movie that was available streaming anywhere for me. I couldn't even pay to rent it from somewhere. So I think there still is a big hurdle there in terms of trying to maybe insulate Hollywood from, outside competition. I think a movie specifically like this is going to be tough, possibly psychologically inaccessible for a good percentage of the audience too. And I was fortunate maybe to have seen Battle Royale maybe when I was in high school. I saw that on cable as well. So again, got fortunate, just got lucky and saw that. And I was like, wow, I really like this movie. I'm surprised that it was kind of like a dirty little secret around that time. Right. So a couple of people knew about it and it was like this really shocking thing. So to have at least seen something like that and then jump into this. And, I've seen We Need to Talk About Kevin, which is a lot more psychological about the profile of sort of school violence. So it doesn't make it necessarily palatable, but because of Miike's stylized approach, it certainly makes it for an interesting experience.
Yeah. We'll definitely get more into that.
It's a bit of both, isn't it? Yeah.
Did you want to give a bit of a synopsis breakdown, Dan, before we get into the meat of the convo?
Sure. So this is a Lesson of Evil or Lesson of the Evil. I'm still not sure which one it is because the internet
just
seems to have both.
It's
Lesson of Evil. That makes more sense.
Weird.
Yeah. This is a 2012 Japanese thriller film directed by Takashi Miike, starring Hideaki Ito. It's an adaptation of Yusuke Kishi's 2010 novel of the same name. So, basically, we're going to do full spoilers. This is a pretty old film, and if you're listening to this still, then you've probably seen it already. But yeah, it's basically about a high school teacher named Hasumi who is teaching at a school in kind of rural-ish Japan, but he is secretly a sociopath. So he's living a quiet-ish life in this rural school, but then things start to spiral out of his control, leading to people getting suspicious of his motivations and his actions. And eventually it climaxes in a massive school shooting in which he just tries to kill every kid at school. So yeah, it's
awesome. Very light topic to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's not light, but like you said, Nick, Takashi Miike's kind of brand of making violence comical to the point where it is uncomfortable to watch for different, like it's not overly dramatic, although there are little bits of drama at times in this movie. It's more done for laughs, which kind of in and of itself makes it uncomfortable.
Fair. It's like, well, you know, obviously I'm in the United States. Not a day goes by where we don't have a school shooting anymore. So the identity of a movie that trivializes school shootings, I think, is precarious, to say the least. But also, like, the way that this movie is handled, sort of, it takes the event at the end and it sort of detaches that from the intent of the character. So I feel like it's less visceral in that way from just like a cultural standpoint or a social standpoint, especially like given gun violence here in the States. And yeah, it's weird because it's like, can I effectively say that I like a movie where that thing happens and have that be okay? And I think that both things can be true.
Yeah,
I can be uncomfortable because of it, but also still ultimately like what the movie was attempting to do.
I think that is the Takashi Miike method working in spades right there. I think he's a master of making you feel uncomfortable in its stylized portrayal of violence. I guess it's sort of like if Michael Haneke did more entertaining films rather than just like complete despair movies.
Fair, yeah.
I think,
you know, it made me think about Funny Games a little bit.
Yeah.
I first watched this movie when it came out. I think it was at it showed at a film festival, but I didn't watch it at a film festival. And admittedly, yes, I did have to sail the high seas to watch this movie because there's no way in hell this is going to get a public distribution in Australia. But I do have the Blu-ray that Third Window Films. I think they're a UK-based distributor. So I've got the Blu-ray and I've seen all the behind the scenes and stuff, and it's pretty cool. But yeah, I think I watched this movie late at night with a mate of mine. We had a ritual of just watching as much J-horror as we could in one night before, like 6 a.m. And I think the first half of this movie sort of like washed over me. I didn't really absorb that much, to be honest, on my first viewing.
That's fair.
I found that the high school shooting aspect of it was really quite shocking for me at the time. Man, I had seen Battle Royale, and I have seen We Need to Talk About Kevin and Elephant as well by this point. But there was something about this movie that really like struck a chord, and I found it difficult to watch on the first viewing. Like I had that very much that gloomy feeling, like damn, because like there is sort of an elongated segment where he has, quite a number of students trapped in the top of the rooftop.
Yeah.
And then they're playing this kind of comically fun jazz Mac the Knife song.
Yeah.
And then he's just gunning them all down in like a 2 minute, under 2 minute take where it's all done like practically as well. And I was just like, fuck, this is really rough because what you're watching, because there's no cuts. And I'm like, what I'm watching is a man with a Winchester gunning down students.
Yeah.
And this is the part where it felt more like this is almost, it's done stylistically, but it felt quite realistic when I compared it to Battle Royale. And I was like, damn, like I didn't feel good after watching this movie for the first time, I think in 2012. Yeah.
It's ruthless. Like that The whole scene is pretty ruthless, and he's having so much fun as well, the character of Hasumi doing all these murders. But you talked about the first half of the film. So the first half of the film is quieter. It's a lot quieter than the climax of the film.
Yeah, it is.
It's kind of more of a thriller, I guess. Because Hasumi is such an interesting character in that he's just crazy.
Yeah.
He doesn't particularly want to murder. Like he has a flashback where he actually kills his murdering partner because that guy enjoyed murdering people and he doesn't. So he says he doesn't want to murder people. And he's got like weird morals, like he wants to stop the kids from cheating in the exam, which is what actually like kicks off this whole spiral into that culminates in the school shooting, you know? So like his motivations initially, they're like what a teacher would want to do, you know? Like he wants to stop this cheating ring. But he's just got no boundaries, I guess. So I just find him a really...
That's one way to put it.
Like he's got his line, his moral line is very weird. It's hard to place. Yeah, I found like the first half maybe more interesting than the actual climax of the film.
I actually think it's more interesting.
I definitely found the sort of, I'm going to just say the preamble because the climax of the film is an hour long and it's all just like one action event. But yeah, the psychology of the characters and the building of the dynamic and sort of like the romances between the teachers and the students and sort of the intermingling of all of those stories trying to like coexist in the same space, that makes the movie a more, I think, intellectually engaging property when it's like, yeah, at the end it's a bloodbath and he's just gunning people down. And even though it is handled well and filmed well, there is still a part of me that's like, it's just at a certain point it stops being fun to watch it. It's like I appreciate some of the stuff, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, now he shotguns a guy and that guy's like sliding across the floor. So I'm like, okay, well, obviously Miike's aware that we can't have it be like too realistic because the brutality of that just like won't land. But he's an interesting character, and like it's not lost on me that his partner is, I'll say he's American because I think that is the implication.
I think that's what they're going for.
He's sitting there. He may be a Canadian or Australian actor playing that role, but he is intended to be American. And I mean, you see the raincoat that he puts on before he starts shooting people. So I feel like Miike like sort of watched American Psycho. And was like, there's some things that I want to take away from this in terms of the things that this character like has yes and no's about, you know, because Patrick Bateman is like, he sort of like doesn't want to kill people, but he very much enjoys killing people. But then he's very rigid about some other things, like the business cards and stuff like that. So I feel like you wanted to really have this character that you couldn't sort of pigeonhole into sort of like one explainable type of psychopathy. And to pair him with an American, I don't think Miike is a dumb person. I feel like in 2012 or 13 when this movie's coming out, like we've still had school shootings be part of our sort of cultural narrative and the media that happens in our country. So I think the awareness of that and trying to like sort of look at all of those things about the States and like take those characters, take those aspects and like put it into something that feels very much like his own. I feel like that's what this movie is. And so when you get to the point where this character sort of is like crazy enough to just be acknowledged as crazy, but also smart enough to try to dismiss the crazy, you still don't really necessarily walk away from the film pinning this person down.
It's kind of different to like a Jason Voorhees type of movie, because Jason Voorhees is killing kids all the time, right? But it's definitely not as uncomfortable to watch as this movie. And I think that is kind of like that realism aspect and the connection to the real world that is making it uncomfortable.
I mean, when you look at like slasher films from the 70s and 80s, like I've got buddies that are like huge slasher fans that, you know, we'll watch like a shitty slasher together to see how awesome the kill is. But 90% of the time, it's like at best, these are people like in their early 20s, you know? So it's either kids that are if they're at a summer camp, they're either counselors in their teens or they're teens in their teens. You know, when you're casting adults to play those roles, it sort of like looks a little bit different. But yeah, those slashers pretty much entirely, including Scream, like those kids were all in high school when that was happening. I Know What You Did Last Summer. All this stuff is attacking high school kids, but it's done in a very different kind of way. And the high school kids are also portrayed a little bit more like adults than they are high school kids. It's like, yeah, the setting is high school, but all of them are portrayed basically as adults. And I feel like even in this movie a little bit, all of the high school kids, for the most part, sort of feel more present and fleshed out as adults rather than just like children.
Some of them, I would agree.
Yeah.
Some of them, not all of them.
I think it's interesting you bring that up because, like, when I watch a movie like Scream or a lot of those slashers, and you are saying that it is essentially the characters themselves are in high school or you know, late teens, early 20s, but those films are done in a way where it's a lot more entertaining. There's a lot more, like, I guess the people that are killed are essentially, they set them up to be like either unlikable or some likable, but there's a sort of I guess cinematic flair that makes it more palatable. And I guess in Lesson of Evil, this just might be an Asian thing, but a lot of the kids look younger, and I think quite a number of the cast, they were actually maybe like 16 or 17. I think there's a number of prolific actors. The main girl that survives, she's like a pretty big actress now.
Fumi Nikaido.
Yeah, Fumi Nikaido.
Plays Reika.
And Shota Sumetani, he's the one that dies early. He's the one that gets Bunsen burned to death.
Keisuke.
He's actually like quite a big actor in Japan, but I think they were very young at the time. And there's something about a mentality of kids in Asia where they're a little bit more naively innocent, I think. So it makes it a little bit more uncomfortable to watch when they're like getting killed.
Yeah, and even something as simple as the costuming, like they're all wearing school uniforms as they're getting killed. Like that is just a psychological trigger for us as the audience, like constantly reminding us that these are kids, you know, as opposed to
you
like
can't really just be like
Jennifer Love Hewitt running around, you know, like that. You're not a kid, you're Jennifer Love Hewitt.
You're 25 years old. And it also, I think the costuming is an important distinction because especially in movies like Scream or a lot of the slashers that came before it, or I Know What You Did Last Summer, like these kids are, you know, what I went to a parochial school, so I wore a uniform. So these kids were like in free dress at school. So like you could very clearly as the costumer identify like this guy's the douchebag, like this person's the nerd, this is the hot girl, this is the hot guy. All those costume choices are very important. So I think one of this movie's strengths is that the kids feel much more like a group of kids than they do as sort of individual stereotypes that are sort of like existing just for the sake of getting picked off.
Yeah.
Because you don't really know who of the kids is going to make it, if any of them are going to make it.
Yeah.
Whereas like, I know Jennifer Love Hewitt's not dying.
Takashi Miike is pretty good at building up characters that seem like they're going to do something, but then they don't. They just die. Yeah. And I find that quite an interesting subversion of expectation.
The Ned Stark maneuver.
I mean, there's there's one of the teachers, the gym teacher, who he's not really a good guy because he's like sexually harassing one of the students, which is, I mean, a fucking another topic in itself. But he's a pretty prominent actor. So a lot of people watching this movie would see, oh yeah, he's kind of like usually the cool guy that will save the day. But his demise is getting distracted by panties and then shot, which is funny. In the behind the scenes, I think they did like 30 takes of him trying to catch the panty on the
I was wondering
the gym the gym equipment.
It's not easy to do.
Yeah, and it's just like over and over again. I wish I had that time, like just working on a film. I think there's a bit where like they're trying to drop like a cigarette, and they do like 40 takes of this cigarette just rolling down this thing. I'm like, man, like damn, that's a lot of film.
This is a long production day.
Money well well spent.
Was the gym teacher also sleeping with the student?
Oh yeah, he was. He blackmails
Okay.
her. He
That's what I thought.
Blackmails.
Yeah,
her.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
And the whole panty thing. He takes off her panties, and he doesn't just catch him. It's like
Sniffs him.
that moment
them.
in the film, he smells them, and that's when he recognizes whose panties they are, and then he dies.
Yeah. Yeah.
It sounds so fucking absurd
Yeah.
and funny when you say literally what happens. It's really funny in this pretty bleak movie.
I mean, it's a
And I think
terrible thing.
that's
It's a
the-
terrible situation, but yeah, like it's just that injection of humor, the Takashi Miike style.
I want to like follow on your statement about the costuming because on just rewatching this like a few days ago, I forget how good the art direction is in this movie because
great looking film.
like, there's a lot of weird stuff. There's like this one of the art pieces, it's not even shown in the behind the scenes, and I'm not even sure if they bring it up again, but it's this table, this long table, and then there's like this sort of like mannequin puppet thing with a really long neck just staring at Hasumi, and it's just like, man, that's fucking creepy. And there's a scene where one of the teachers, he's kind of like seen as kind of like a pervert, scummy teacher, but Hasumi kills him when he sort of gets close on his tail that he was a previous.
That's the only teacher that's not sleeping with students, and he's the creep.
He's the creep. Yeah, that's Miike. But he knocks him out, and he stages like a suicide on a train, and you can obviously tell that it's a puppet, but it makes that uncanniness feel so much more disturbing because the neck is like unnaturally elongated if you look from behind the puppet. And they left out this detail in the movie, but if you actually see the puppet's face, they did a fucking good job at making that guy's face on the puppet. And like, man, this looks so fucking creepy, and it hits that uncanny really, really well, I think. Yeah. So this movie, a lot goes into its production design as well, and especially with all the Halloween stuff. I'm like, man, these are some gifted students if they're making, Halloween houses like this. I never really saw that stuff as detailed when I was over there.
It's the
going
club
through the
culture
haunted
in
house
Japan,
stuff.
Tubby. They spend a lot of time on it.
Yeah.
Was the gun with the eye in it, is that a practical effect? Looks pretty practical.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
practical.
I think so.
Yeah. I see them, like, there's a bit where Hideaki Ito, he's just looking at the puppet. It's like, oh, this is so cool. And it's just like three guys like puppeteering the eyeball like through like these contraptions and whatnot. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's very interesting to see how little green screen there was in this movie. And a lot of the shootings, it's just like, it's obviously just a pipe, like a pressure pipe with fake blood, and then they would just shoot the students. But from what I've seen in the behind the scenes, a lot of it is they'll do their rehearsal blocking and then react when this happens. And then I think they only do like one take, sometimes two takes, and then that's it. They just move on. And I think it's pretty interesting to get that level of fear of performance from some of the child actors who have not that much experience in doing it and like just getting it and moving it on. Yeah.
And they're great. They're doing great freak out reactions.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
It's interesting because there are a lot of students in that last scene, and they all feel like fleshed out characters to an extent. And it's kind of hard to do that with such little, like the little amounts of screen time that they get, especially the archery kid. That came out of nowhere. I totally forgot about this plot point. But archery kid, you know? Poor dude, that was tragic. And he's like barely in the film.
and Takashi Miike sort of like elongates his death. It's like watching him get shot is not enough. You're gonna like watch his intestines sort of come out or bleed. Well, they don't come out, but it's just
mean. The girl he likes is also
it's
there.
mean. And then she just gets shot shortly after. Yeah.
You know, that scene is like, Miike's giving you some hope because one of the kids finally has a weapon. It's the only weapon. He's escaped the school. Like, he finally has some advantage that none of the other ones have. And then in the moment where that advantage can actually like matter, it doesn't. And it still ends probably more tragically because of that. The hope being pulled away again. It's like, because in that kind of story where it's like, oh, the killer has trapped everybody, like you don't really know which kids are going to be the kids that survive. Like they haven't, there's no Jennifer Love Hewitt there to be like, all right, well, we follow her and we just avoid death narrowly all the time. There's no Nev Campbell. So it's like, oh, this kid's got a weapon. Like this is the chance that they have. And then to, just take that away from you in very cruel fashion is it's cruel.
Yeah, because the structure of this film is not unlike a classic structure, because as you said, Dan, a lot of these kids feel fleshed out enough that it's hard to watch them die, but there is no clear protagonist or clear antagonist either, because the first half of the film is, I guess, quite loose in a sense that you're mostly following Hasumi trying to not get caught, but he is, I'm not even sure in the movie sense if he is an antagonist, but he's the one we're following, whereas we only really get snippets of the kids a little bit. And I think the closest ones to, I guess, the ones that we follow is probably Fumi Nikaido and Shota, because that's the extra diegetic knowledge that I know that they're famous actors. So I feel like when I first watch it, like these two are going to be the ones that do something. But Hasumi dispatches Keisuke like very early on in the film in a off-screen but very brutal manner. So the structure of it can be not hard to follow, but it's a bit weird. Yeah. And it might put some people off because it can seem a little bit, I guess, disjointed in that manner.
So you think the start put people off this movie, Tommy? The start of the film?
Well, no. I think so. I think it's not like something that is that easily digestible for people to make it to.
Well, it's kind of similar to American Psycho, right? Like American Psycho, we get the whole, I think so, the whole movie is from Patrick Bateman's point of view. But like, is he a protagonist? Not really. And he's not even really an antagonist for that matter. We're just watching a guy spiral out of control and trying to see how he gets out of it, really. We're not necessarily rooting for him to get out of it, but, we're kind of along for the ride. But like on Hasumi, like what do you think of Hideaki Ito's performance as this guy, Nick?
I mean, he's great in the lead, unfortunately. I mean, in order to pull that character off, it takes a lot of nuance because he does have to sort of be convincing enough as the good teacher, and then he's got to be menacing enough as the killer, and then he's got to be psycho enough to pull off the parts in the movie where his gun is talking to him and he's sort of hallucinating and remembering, his past killing buddy, or he's got to be intense enough to just do naked upside down crunches and pull-ups.
It's probably hard to
do. So, number one, hard to do. Number two, like
drafty.
It almost feels a little bit kind of like something from maybe not Silence of the Lambs, but like Red Dragon in like the commitment to the sort of like the physical intensity. So I think it's a really strong performance. I think he's clearly sort of the person that we're supposed to be paying attention to the most.
I forget about the naked upside down crunches. Like, damn, I wish I could do that, to have that confidence, just to naked upside down crunches.
It's at least 90% confidence, he's suitably unhinged in this role, but he's also quite charming as just like a teacher. Like if you take away all his crimes, his arsons, the wiretapping and the murders and the relations with minors and the nude pull-ups, if you take all of that away, he actually seems like a pretty good bloke. There are little
the whole
moments.
Point. That's why the students love him.
Yeah, there are moments like even when it's just the teachers. I think there's a very early moment in the staff room where they're having a meeting and they're trying to come up with ideas on how to stop this cheating racket. And like Hasumi comes up with the idea to block the phone signals. He tries to give Suri the floor to like explain. He doesn't want to kind of take away Suri's spotlight. It's just moments like that that kind of make Hasumi a bit more likable, even when nobody's watching him. Like he goes out of his way to kind of do a nice thing, which again speaks to like his weird moral compass. I really enjoy the part where they're on the rooftop just after he kills Mia.
Yeah, he throws Mia off the roof.
Yeah, he throws her off the roof, stages a suicide, and then he goes to open the door and that other girl is just there. And you see like that exasperation in Hasumi's face, even though he's kind of got back to camera. It kind of reminds me of, you ever play Hitman and you're going really well in a level and then you get spotted by a guard. So you take the guard out, but then another guard like spots you killing that guard. And then you're like, fuck. All right, I'm going to restart. But before I do, I'm going to kill every NPC that I come across. Just go on no holds barred.
That's a very unironically apt metaphor for what happens to Hasumi, because I don't think he was planning to shoot the school down. I think his mentality at that point is, I've been caught. What can I do to cover up this? Kill everyone and then blame it on this other teacher who's having an affair with another student. To him, that's just matter of fact. Like, he has to do that for survival in his mind. Whether he wants to do it or not, it's a different story. But that's the moment where he snaps, which is
you see it in that kill too, like the sort of the recognition of like, crap, now I have to kill her too. And then I know that I have my like plastic bag with a rock in it that is my weapon of choice, but I don't have time for that, so I'm just gonna like violently snap this girl's neck. It's like it's a change of tone in sort of his methodical approach to it into more of like a reactionary methodology. And so he is a character that feels like probably he doesn't necessarily look at what he's doing as even wrong. We're trying to, the descriptions that I'm reading say like sociopath, and I'm like, well, yeah, he is that, but he's also very clearly a psychopath because he doesn't see that there's other ways out. Like, he could have lied his way out of the situation with her jumping off the roof, right? Like, I tried to stop her, but I was too late. He can break down and cry, but it's like he doesn't, as a sociopath, he doesn't have like maybe necessarily the emotional tools to pull that off. And so the fact that his instinctual default is just kill them all, it's like, well, yeah, you're not a good guy.
No, he's not. I think he did it out of frustration more than anything. It's like, oh, fuck. Oh, well, better do this.
That was apparently, like a pretty dangerous like stunt that they had to like prep for a little bit, like the rehearsal, because it's like
the neck snap.
Yeah, the neck snapping, because like I think if the actress did actually go the wrong way, because he does it quite forcefully, like in the take as well, and it's like it sells, so, but it's quite funny to watch them just like sort of perform. So it's like, well, I'm gonna snap your neck this way, so like, and then she's just doing like the little, I guess, the jolts, like I'll shake like this or something. It's just funny watching actors perform. I'm not sure there was much stunt double usage in a lot of this, because they pretty much, for all the stuff that Mia was doing when he's chucking her off the roof, I think they held her up by a wire in the crane and they just built some mat contraption to catch her if she like fell, just and they had the team there and stuff. But a lot of the students just did their own stunts. I guess they couldn't afford stunt people.
It's pretty physical stuff. But we've kind of been dancing around it, Nick. But did you actually enjoy this movie?
That is a fair question. I think so, because I was interested in what's happening and I appreciated the way that the setup for the finale happened. Like, we kind of, when we were talking about which movie we were going to do, I kind of like, at least I had a ballpark for what I was preparing myself for, versus had I had no idea and I watched the first half of the movie, then by the time the second half rolls around, it was like, oh, I didn't see any of this coming. So I feel like in preparation, it sort of allowed me to brace for impact in that way. And I feel like Miike is doing a lot of interesting things. And so the part of me that is appreciative of those interesting things maybe overpowers the part of me that doesn't want to watch a school shooting.
Yeah.
I feel the same way as you. I think my first viewing is the same as you. I think I enjoyed it, but yeah, I don't want to watch kids get like slaughtered by guns, you know?
I was going to say, it's not lost on me either that as the gun becomes like involved in the story, it becomes its own character and it's essentially possessed by his American cohort. And so I feel like none of this is on accident, right? I feel like this is making a very specific statement about what it is doing in the film. And so for that reason, I was like, okay, well, those moments where the eyeball pops up and starts talking to him sort of like is a moment for us as the audience to like catch our breath in between, you know, these high school kids getting shot.
What I really like about Takashi Miike, and one of the reasons why I idealize him as well, is that he does stuff on purpose and shows things on purpose, but he will never give you an answer if you asked him. This came out a lot when Audition first came out, and people were calling, oh, you know, it's kind of like this feminist piece where like the girl's getting the upper hand against like the masculinity of society. But he's like, nah, it's not about that. And then he just doesn't elaborate. He's like, nah. So you could even say that.
Movie?
Like you could.
It's a love story.
So if I imagine if you had Takashi Miike in a room and you're like, oh, so like I see what you did with, you know, the gun being possessed by the American counterpart, and it's just like, nah, it's just fun. So I think Takashi Miike
Like,
is...
You're a sick man then.
Yeah, he's a sick man. But I like his directing style, and he's got a very interesting demeanor on set where he never seems like he gets aggressive. He's a weirdo, but he's also just kind of like just there, and he's like, yeah, like whatever's whatever. We'll just do the next shot. It's like, yep, we're gonna kill kids today, and then we're gonna kill 2 more tomorrow. Cool, kind of thing. That's his demeanor.
Is he doing all this while doing naked pull-ups? Because that's a red flag.
You know the scene on the train, because like there's a lot of ads on the train, so they're all fake ads, and he had his art team do like one where it's his face like being like a construction worker, and it looks really silly. And I think I like the idea, or like I think Takashi Miike is not a guy that really takes himself very seriously or even talks about his films being any form of masterpiece. He's just like, yeah, I made over 120 films. Like he'd probably be remiss to even remember what his thought process was for shooting this. So I think that's a very like admirable trait, because you know you get I guess to look at it on the other end of the spectrum of, I guess, you know, Quentin Tarantino, you know, he'll go on the interviews and he'll talk quite loudly about his film and burst about his knowledge and this and this and this, and he's obviously a great filmmaker, one of my favorites, but I don't think Miike is a guy that really would do that. I could be wrong. I've seen enough interviews, but it's like, yeah, I think he's just like, yeah, you know, I did this because like I got paid to do it, but I thought the idea was quite interesting. And it's yeah, and like he does some outrageous shit. Like, I mean, we talked about Ichi the Killer a little bit. Like he used like real cum to make the title.
Delightful.
And he didn't have to do that, but you know, he's just like, yeah, I'll just use it. It's fine. Like,
In fact, he probably
about
shouldn't have done that.
No, he should not have. We covered that movie in Film Club, I don't know, like 6 months, maybe a year ago at this point. And so like when reading about it, it's like, oh, he used real cum. I'm like, yeah, but whose cum? You just, his own? Do you like make all of your actors be like, hold on, today everybody jerks off in the bucket and then we're doing the titles for that. But he also, there's like the moment in Ichi where like you see him like splatter jizz on the wall. And I was like, oh, is that, you know, is all the cum in this movie real cum? He couldn't find it any other way. He's just doing it for authenticity's sake. But in this movie, like what other movie are you going to get where a guy like defibrillates his balls and ejaculates in the middle of the classroom while everyone's watching and he's staring like his teacher dead in the face?
Yeah.
Very happy about it.
She doesn't even react. She's just like, yeah. This is normal. This is a normal thing to happen in high school.
That's Japanese kid.
It's fine.
Yeah.
There is kind of like a level of unreality to this movie. I think even like the flashback scenes where he is thinking about his American counterpart, American partner in crime, like it's very dreamlike. It's almost like maybe it didn't happen. Just the way that it's filmed in the line delivery. I don't know whether that was intentional or not, but it's so weird. Like the character of Clay is somehow weirder than Hasumi.
All the American actors, yeah.
Yeah, I love all the parts where he speaks English.
It's the argument like that I guess I defend about the actors in Squid Game, the American actors. I'm not sure if it's just poor direction in the English part or it's just if the actors aren't really that good. The delivery is just so unnatural that it adds a lot more to that, I guess, ethereal dream aspects of that sequence. Yeah.
That's a good point.
And then you get him coming back as the gun. Hey, partner.
Hey, partner. How about some more enthusiasm? It's like, if only I had a gun that talked to me when I was trying to do things, and it's just like, it'd be like my editing software whispering to me, and it's just like, how about some more enthusiasm?
Very fleshy eyeball pops up on the webcam.
Good stuff. Yeah, this movie is almost dreamlike. Even like the two crows that are representing Munin and Mugen, is it? That's weird. That's a weird thing.
Norse mythology stuff. Yeah. I haven't looked too much into that, but it's definitely like kind
Probably
of a weirder
means something,
point.
but Takashi Miike is not telling. I mean, the song Mac the Knife, like it's funny because the movie opens with a naked young Hasumi going up to murder his parents while they're like kind of discussing why their son is so weird.
Yeah.
It's like, maybe it's because you play the German version of Mac the Knife all the time. That's probably why. That probably doesn't help, you know?
It could be, yeah. Because I think like when we asked Nick to watch this film, like I think we wanted to have the point from someone who I guess is watching this movie, and I guess when you are dealing with a subject as heavy as a school shooting, because like, criticism of this movie is that it's done quite like tastelessly, because that's not really an issue in Japan. So they sort of do, I guess, stylize it to a point. But,
or in Australia for that matter.
Yeah. That's true in Australia as well, yeah. But do you think if you... obviously, like a general audience would not like this film. That's just a given. But to anyone who is sort of like looking to, I guess, discover this sort of like East Asian disturbing cinema, but not having an idea of this, do you think this movie would be, I guess, deemed tasteless in that manner to not a normal person, but someone who's sort of like looking to watch something more?
Can you think of anyone in your circle, Nick, that you could recommend this movie to?
In a way, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. There's a couple people that have probably seen it, and maybe those same people I could recommend the film to. There's people I know who are bigger Miike fans than I am, so they may have already seen it. But yeah, like I would say those are sort of online friends. Like anybody who I know in the flesh probably be like, nah, you don't need to see that.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So making a Hollywood remake of this film might not necessarily bring in a lot of box office, is what you're saying.
Definitely not right now.
Yes, there's definitely a lot of unrest going on at the moment.
Yeah, we just have to turn on the news and then we'll get the school shootings.
I mean, Dan and I watched The Long Walk pretty recently, and that is a pretty heavy movie as well. But actually, surprisingly, a very nice movie. Like, I actually was very surprised by the sentimentality of that film. And I guess it's interesting if we do bring up the American handling of this idea, because obviously there's not a lot of films about school shootings, but there's obviously Elephant, where it's mostly just sort of like long takes until basically the last 10-20 minutes of the film. And then you have We Need to Talk About Kevin, which is not even a gun, it's a bow and arrow, which I think they did that choice to sort of lower the rating down, so because the guns might have been too realistic. And I think there was a short film maybe 6 years ago that I saw. It's about like a student or a staff worker who like talks down a student who's about to shoot a school. And it's a short film and it's quite good. Yeah. So there's an obvious like level of, I guess, handling when it's done I guess, in the US, because it is really a touchy subject.
There's also the movie Mass, which is about a group of 4 parents like talking about gun violence in schools, I think after a mass shooting incident. And then there was another one with Jenna Ortega and another actress that was like I think it was like a straight to Amazon, maybe a COVID movie where they survive a mass shooting by like hiding in the bathroom. And then it's about sort of the mental toll that it took on them after the fact. So I think the way that the United States has to reconcile with the gun violence, especially in schools, being such a large byproduct of our culture, the way that this movie ends, I just don't think that movie ever gets made here.
Because the movie ends with the premise that there's going to be a sequel. But I wonder, like, I don't remember if there was actually a planned sequel, but it just didn't get into fruition, or if it's the idea that to be continued is the statement of like, this shit is just going to keep happening. And that's sort of like a fact of life, which is kind of a scarier message.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up Long Walk because, that is a story that those are young men, probably not teens, but at least 1 or 2 of them. I think the minimum age for the contest in that story is 18. So you do have people that are, like maybe legally adults, but still young people. There's a lot of graphic killings in that. And I think the nature of what that story is telling allows the graphic violence to be more about these punctuations surrounding the characters that we're watching versus being the punctuation on the film itself, which this movie does. And so if I'm going to try to make an American remake of this, you either have to go like insane, like full comedy, or you have to find a director who can manage to like capture the kind of comedy action stuff that you would need to even soften it to the point where like you can maybe laugh at something like that happening. So I feel like the gore in this movie, while is a little bit amplified, right? Most of the time, like there's not going to be like a huge torrent of blood in a situation. I feel like it's played fairly close to the chest in terms of realism. And I think that's what would make it difficult to get anybody to even be interested in making the film, to be honest.
It's interesting that you bring up the whole gore aspect, because Japan's rating system is a bit weird because they're actually very sensitive to gore. Like, if a scene is too realistically depicted, it does not pass censorship. So that's why a lot of like Japanese blood splatter films are quite popular, because it's not realistic in that manner. But what they do let pass is very heavy themes, which I find interesting. Like, I find this kind of stuff would be more disturbing than just gore. Even comparing the Long Walk to Lesson of Evil in terms of the deaths, the Long Walk actually has slightly more realism in their kills. Yeah, for sure. Whereas in this movie and in Battle Royale as well, it does like look a little bit fake, because you're essentially just blasting people with fake blood. So obviously some of the other more, I guess, high impact kills do have more special effects makeup. Like, I didn't even realize that one of the boys that gets killed after watching the teacher drumming, they actually did a whole prosthetic makeup of his face being blown off, but it's not seen in the movie, but his face has been blown off. And a lot of the actors like, oh, that's fucking creepy, and it's like, oh yeah, it looks cool, but like, yeah, his face has been blown off. But it's not that violent in that manner, that it's not particularly gory, but there's a lot of blood.
That's fair.
Yeah, the gore is not what makes this film uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah, it's obviously a situation.
Yeah, exactly. And then with something like The Long Walk, like the first person that gets shot, like you spend a lot of money to make that look good and to also like be the shock factor at the beginning. So that way it's like, oh, you know what the stakes are and they're not playing around here. And so then a lot of the other kills are sort of like allowed to happen in the background, and you sort of just, we've already shown you like what we need to show you, so you don't need to see the close-up of this person getting shot in the face.
Yeah, definitely. It's less mean than this film.
Yeah, it's less mean. Yeah.
I mean, with all that said, we've gone on about like how this film cannot possibly be remade for a Western audience in today's climate. Shall we attempt to develop a Bad Hollywood remake of this film?
Yes, I call this the Disney live action remake of this movie.
Oh Lord,
even though it already is live action. But who would be our director?
I thought about this question, and then the more we talked about it, I'm like, well, if it could get made, I would go with someone like Paul W.S. Anderson. Because he knows, he's a schlock master, and he knows the kind of like movies that he makes. And while they are like stylized and violent, I don't know that I take any of them really seriously, or at least really. I haven't in quite some time.
Nobody does. Even the people that made them don't take those movies seriously. That's a good choice.
So I think, he's got the right sort of like tone, I guess, that I would want. Because if you go with someone who's like more of a modern horror director, like a Fede Alvarez or the guy that everybody hates, Kreger, the guy who did, why can I not think of it? The new Halloween that everybody hates, David Gordon Green. Mm-hmm. So it's like, if you go with like modern horror directors, you may sort of end up in some territory that like you're making the movie in a way that like realistically like can't be made. So I would rather go with someone who has like more of an action pedigree and is willing to dabble. That's why I went with Anderson.
Does that mean that Mila Djokovic would play Hasumi, the character of Hasumi?
Well, she'll be in there. I mean, she'll play some character, that's for sure.
I still make this mistake, but when you said Paul W.S. Anderson, I was thinking of Paul Thomas Anderson. So I was like, oh, that's an interesting choice. But like, I wonder if there is a Paul Thomas Anderson version of this, and Hasumi is played by Daniel Day-Lewis. Like, I'd watch the shit out of that. It's just like chewing the sea, drinking all the kids' milkshakes and whatnot.
I mean, you spoke about like modern horror directors. Like initially, I was leaning towards someone like Damien Leone of the Terrifier series. Again, leaning on that kind of shock factor. And like his movies or that Terrifier series, they're pretty mean as well. And,
Fair.
And like a lot of people find them uncomfortable to watch. But I think going an action direction would probably make it a lot more easy to be greenlit.
Well, usually when I approach this segment, I don't put my mind into like making it actually good. I put my mindset into like, I'm a Disney executive and how much money can I make from this movie? So I would.
That's why every movie has Jenna Ortega in it.
Jenna Ortega. I'd probably put I don't know who's that guy that did Wicked, John M. Chu. Yeah, he'd probably do it
John
and
Chu.
turn it into a musical, and it would just lose all of its teeth, but then people would see it. But then, like, he actually teaches them a lesson and then, doesn't kill anyone.
You promised not to cheat, right? Okay, I'm going to put this gun away.
Now let's sing about it. Did you have any top casting choices, Nick?
For that type of character,
there's a lot, actually, that could do this role pretty well. I mean, since it is based a little bit off Patrick Bateman, like, there could actually be a proper legitimate candidate, but I'm just wondering who.
It depends how old I would want to go for that character. I think if you frame the casting as a little bit older, you sort of imply more like history, whereas this version of Hasumi is like kind of young, and so maybe that's why like he's appealing to the students. And so like Javier Bardem played a very good Psycho, of course, and No Country for Old Men, but then Patrick Schwarzenegger did a really good job playing basically his version of Patrick Bateman in the movie Daniel Isn't Real. And he's like an imaginary friend who is Patrick Bateman. So it's like the worst possible imaginary friend. But it's got really good lead performances. So I feel like he could do it if you want to like skew a little bit younger, or like screw it. If it's Paul W.S. Anderson, it's going to be Mila. And then, she's comfortable being naked. She'll do the naked crunches and she'll do all that.
Yeah.
She could.
Should be doing flips around those high school kids. Shoot it in 3D. That's printing money.
I reckon Ryan Gosling might be an interesting choice, because he's a bit older now, And he's still got that like handsome look that like a lot of the students would like sort of go to and flock to as someone that they find like, I guess, is charming. But he's got that kind of like that loose rage. Like, I mean, I always think of the scene in Blade Runner 2049, which is basically a meme now, when he finds out he's a replicant, and he's like, "Yeah, damn it!" So I wonder if he can bring that into kind of like a psycho manner. Maybe.
Has he ever played a psycho before, or like a villain even?
I don't think so. I'm just having a quick look through his wiki. I don't think so. He's always done like a charming guy. I guess maybe in Only God Forgives.
Place Beyond the Pines.
Place Beyond the Pines.
I mean, arguably, he's the villain in The Notebook from a certain perspective. Poor James Marsden, always getting cheated on.
Always second fiddle.
James Marsden. I don't know why I thought about this. Well, Robert Pattinson could probably do it as well, actually. Yeah, but he's a bit like, younger. Yeah.
Maybe if we want to go really young, like Austin Butler. You know, I'm curious. When he played Fade Routha and Dune, he was a good menacing psycho. And then I just saw the Caught Stealing, and I was not super enthused about going to see it. It was just whatever was left in theaters, and I was like, all right, well, as a sort of vehicle for him to stretch his acting range, I think it was actually a solid performance from him. So
yeah, I thought that too, actually. Yeah,
pretty fun movie. As we're going through these actors, I'm just imagining like the Naked Crunchers. It's like that.
That's your criteria.
I feel like that's the audition for this role.
It is, yeah. You don't have to read any lines, but hop up there on that beam and
let's see how many.
Whoever can do the most naked crunches, you're gonna win.
Yeah. Cool.
A young Sylvester Stallone would have been good at it.
If we had a machine that could turn back time, you could do a sort of a kindergarten cop, but call it high school cop, but he actually loses his mind, and then it's just
it's not a tumor.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, but he loses his shit, and it's like, damn, this is not the sequel that I thought it was gonna be. It just completely throw people off. Yeah.
In fairness, that is a pretty unhinged performance from him in Kindergarten Cop. I could totally see that. See that going wrong. That's a good shout. Did we have any casting for the other characters? I mean, it's a pretty big cast, so we don't have to go through them all. If any of them stand out,
maybe for the perverted gym teacher, I would go with like Sam Rockwell.
Yeah, that's a good choice. Yeah, Sam Rockwell.
He could be a good perv, and he's played villains before.
What about Walter Goggins as the creepy guy that gets killed in the train?
Oh, yeah.
He could do it pretty well. Yeah.
I was gonna say, if you want to go like really like more character actors, stick with like weird. Crispin Glover would make for a good Suri, the nerdy teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was great in Charlie's Angels.
Mm-hmm, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
I mean, if we're going in the time machine sense, like you could even cast a lot of the kids from like Goonies era or like Stand By Me era as well. Like watching those kids die would be quite sad because you're quite attached to them as well. Yeah.
The cast of Stranger Things is what you're talking about. That's our equivalent nowadays.
Oh yeah. I guess it's Stranger Things. They're much older now though.
I know. They waited like 3-4 years between seasons. They're all like in college now. Oh God, the demon guy's back. We got to go to the underneath.
Let's all ride our bikes there, and they're like trying to squeeze their 28-year-old body onto like this child's bike.
It's like, oh damn,
ridiculous.
Years haven't been kind to me.
My knees.
Oh, they're not that old. They're in their 20s. They'll be fine.
Yeah, we got a good cast here. I would watch this movie.
Yeah. This would actually be an interesting remake if I wasn't like purposely trying to make it bad because of the content of it. I wonder what would be the execution, as we were talking about before, because it's
the compromises that you would have to take to make this palatable. Like, because Speak No Evil was remade not that long ago, and Speak No Evil, the original movie, is a real rough watch. I'm not sure if you've seen either of them, Nick.
Yeah, I've seen both of them.
Okay. So the Hollywood remake obviously took liberties with the ending to make it more palatable to an American audience. So like you could probably apply that to this movie in some way.
You lose a lot of its messaging though, which is the same
and
as
that's
Speak No Evil.
exactly what happened in that. Yeah, like so in watching the original Speak No Evil, like the gut reaction at the end of the film is like you want the parents to have some agency over what's happening to them. Like you want them to fight back. And so obviously somebody watched that movie and was like, oh, we're going to make that version of the movie. And so you get like your rah moment where the parents like overcome the bad guy, but it's like it loses all the teeth that the original one had. It like completely misses the point of what the first movie was. So it's like, yes, you sort of made an enjoyable vehicle for James McAvoy to just be like a roided out psycho, but and it's like, hey, I like that. I liked watching him, but by the end of it, it was like, even though they did the thing that I thought that I wanted to happen in the first movie, all it did was undo the thing that made the first movie actually like worth watching.
I think the Lesson of Evil movie, though, its message is not as clear. So there is a bit more, I guess, of a wiggle room to move things around a little bit. I think what would be lost in the remake is just the intensity and the uncomfortable nature of the film. Because I know these days people really don't like to be uncomfortable while watching movies. If you're looking at any, like, when Beau Was Afraid came out, that was just the main criticism. It made people feel uncomfortable.
Well, I mean, it's supposed to.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. But that's what makes it funny for me. But it's lost on a lot of people. Yeah. And big studios don't really make mid-budget movies anymore. So they wouldn't gamble on anything like this. Yeah.
It's like, all right, okay, guys, I know this is going to sound crazy, but we need a bunch of pervy teachers. We need several teachers sleeping with students. Yeah. And we're going to bring a gun into the school. It's like, okay, no. This movie's not getting made.
This movie would be made by like A24, maybe by a bunch of like high profile, but maybe disgruntled actors who are just like, let's make kind of like a fuck you movie to the industry. It's kind of like maybe a Serbian film styles where it's like high budget, uncomfortable watch kind of thing. That would be like the potential remake to this movie.
Or it could be a Paul W.S. Anderson movie. He goes in to pitch it. He writes Lesson of Evil on the whiteboard, turns the S's into dollar signs.
The twist would be like Umbrella is just underneath the school, and the students are zombies. That's how they'd get away with it.
Oh my god!
There you go. Resident Evil 11.
Resident Evil 11. Lesson of Evil. Resident of the Lesson of the Resident Evil or something. I'm trying to think of a mashup name for it. Yeah, that's how you get a remake. It'd be a Resident Evil spin-off. Hasumi is probably one of the mad scientists, and the commandos come in, and all the students are zombies. But because they're zombies, it's all right. It's like in that the Korean show, like All of Us Are Dead. They're high school students, but they're zombies, so it's fine. There you go. We found it.
That's how you get around it. Just make it a zombie film.
Just make it a zombie film.
Nice one. All right, cool. Well, thank you for talking about this movie with us, Nick, and watching it even.
Yeah,
I know
course,
it's not for everyone, but I'm glad that you were able to have some, I wanted to say pleasant takeaways from it, but I don't know if that's even the right word, to enjoy it on some level.
I mean, I feel like the movie was well made, right? And so, like, I have an appreciation for Miike as a filmmaker that I think extends some grace. And, I wouldn't categorize this as a bad movie at all. It's just like, do I want to watch it again to try to maybe make it more enjoyable? Or do I just, like, let it simmer for a while and then I'll think about it again later? And, if I really need to put pen to paper on, like, whether or not I quote unquote liked it, I can figure that out later.
Yeah. I mean, interestingly, just looking at the ratings now on IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes, and Letterboxd, it might not even qualify for Bad Movies We Love as a bad movie.
I don't think so.
Like 6.6 out of 10 on IMDb, 59% Rotten Tomatoes, 3.4.
Well, I don't think this was ever approached as being like a bad movie. I think it's just controversial.
Controversial.
Movie. Yeah.
Yes. Indeed. All right. Well, Nick, we're up to the plug portion of the show. Where can people find you?
I'd say I'm probably more in the Instagram based right now. I've kind of like left Twitter behind at this point, but Bad Movies We Love is where I spend most of my time on social media now. I mean, you and I mostly talk on Instagram, so that's where I really do most of it. And of course on Twitter still, but yeah, if you want to listen to any of the number of shows, you can go to sheistpodnet something captivate something. I don't know.
I'll put a link in the description.
Don't worry, Dan will do it. That's fine.
It is, yes, sheistpodnet.captivate.fm, and that has links to the original Sheist podcast, Bad Movies We Love, hers, his, and ours, which is the show that I do with my wife, Kunked, which we talked about, and the show that I do with Skadoosh and our associate producer, Jake, and then X-Friends, which is an X-Men 97 podcast that I did with Seth from Movie Friends. So all of those, I think if you go to the one link, then it has the homepage for all that stuff in the network. And then like if you just want to like email me or something, it's nick@thesheist.com and easy peasy.
Nice one. I mean, if you're a fan of movies that people consider bad generally, but you have a fondness for them, maybe you want to appear on the show, you can email Nick. It's a good time.
It was that easy, right? We talked about something and then, a couple messages later, you're on the show.
Talking about the Phantom.
Exactly, yeah. And I'm sure this is definitely, I don't think this will be the end. The end will be the one movie that will eventually break Nick. It's like, I'm not talking with these guys ever again. But we'll have to...
Do you already have that movie planned for me?
Oh, we've got a juicy one that we'll have to whip it out at some point. Yeah.
With a little enthusiasm.
Yeah, a little more enthusiasm.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for listening to this. I hope you're having a good start to the spooky season. And we'll see you next time for more spooky stuff in October. Ooh. Bye-bye.
See you later, guys.
Adios.